Okay.
Oh, no.
Set, we're good.
All right, should we give it a couple minutes for everybody? We have a quorum.
You can if you'd like. Sure.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, we'll give it till 5:04.
5:04. No, that's not the song.
I mean, you already know.
8:05.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah. 2 minutes of karaoke, come on.
All right.
I warned you, Julia.
I'll go sit over there.
We'll get to spend a lot of time tomorrow.
You know what?
Are they?
I know, it'll be great.
Yeah,
It's
we're
gonna be
good.
great.
I still gotta arrange my transportation. though, I thought,
Oh, over there?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm so bad about following.
Is there anyone
baseball.
wishing to speak to any item tonight? Anyone fill out a form? All right, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Start. Give it a minute.
Okay.
All right,
Yep.
call this meeting to order. Is everybody logged in?
Yes.
Great. Do we do an actual roll call or is it all on?
Yes.
Either way you want to do it, you can do an actual roll call or you can call off who's here.
All right, well, we'll start with the roll call. Chair, Seth, present. Vice Chair.
Nador, present.
All right, and Mark Walter.
Here.
Deborah Hutchinson is excused. Essie Fells, doesn't look like she's here. Chase Highland, doesn't look like he's here. Julia.
Yep.
Stephanie Ortiz is excused. Randy.
Present.
All right. Moving on to the next item.
Hold
Oh,
on a second.
I forgot my gavel.
It's okay.
All right, moving on to approval of the agenda from
So
the.
moved.
So moved. Is there a
Hold
second?
on 1 second.
Yep.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, now.
All right, and we have a motion from Randy and a second by Mark. All those in favor of approving the agenda from October 4th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. On to the next item, approval of the minutes from.
Hold
hold on.
Hold on. Yeah, always look.
Oh, always look, sorry.
Yeah, and when she's ready, she'll let you know.
Sorry. I just
So
get so
sorry
excited
about
by
that.
I know.
Robert's
No, take, you know, it's,
flashback to college.
yeah.
Now.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, and approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
So approved.
Motion on the table by Randy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, second by Mark. All those in favor of approving the minutes from last Tuesday, September 27th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. And on to regular business. Item 1.
Wait, hold on 1 second.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, on to regular business. All right, so we have, the first item is on discussion with possible action on creating a work plan. So we have provided a template. This is from the City of Eau Claire Sustainability Advisory Committee. They have, I guess, some similar goals and some different goals, but if everybody's able to pull that out, or I guess
Sorry, on this thing, where is it?
Okay, you click.
Packet?
that's a good question. Open, oops, and.
Attachments.
Yeah.
And then there are the
Thank you.
attachments, so just-
See, that's why I sat next to you. You're already being useful. Thank you.
I'm being useful.
All right, so we have an
Make
example.
sure that's in the
So,
minutes.
Seth, if you want to discuss this item, you need to have someone in second.
Okay, so I guess to get into this item, we need a motion to approve and then discussion on this.
A
So,
motion to approve what?
creating a work plan using the attached template. So,
Wouldn't the
Oh, can
motion
I-
be, once we have the work done, we approve what we're doing? That would be the motion?
So,
Yeah, we've
I guess it
done
could go
it
either
both
way.
ways, where you
Yeah.
actually had discussion before.
Before,
this-
in order to get it on the table to talk about it.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Let's
mean,
do it.
I'm saying we've done them
What if you don't agree with the motion, though? Don't you want to have the discussion before?
That's, you could,
That's what I would like to do.
so if
do
you,
Open it up.
right, you could, what you could do is if you don't agree with creating a work plan, then in order to even disagree with it, someone has to make a motion to even discuss it, then you can say, I don't agree with creating a work plan.
Can I make a motion to discuss creating a work plan before we make a decision on creating a work plan? Is that
Second.
what that is?
Mhm.
Sure.
Well,
Yep,
I-
yep, we can do that.
All right, so there's a motion on the table
Seems odd
to
to me.
But it says
discuss.
discussion.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
Discussion with possible action.
Yeah, so I don't,
Can we just go? into
doesn't mean
discussion
we need to
without-
make all
is that
these
deliberate?
motions, we can just discuss.
All right, let's just start out with discussion on the work plan then, without a motion.
Whatever. Whatever we want to do.
If there are no objections.
No objections.
Okay,
Have
no
a
objections.
discussion?
Let's just.
Have the discussion.
Yeah,
We're having the discussion.
Great.
we'll dive into the
Let me know when
discussion
I
You
here.
got a steep learning
Discuss.
curve here. That's okay. That's okay.
Jump.
Looking at the agenda and items, the next agenda item, and then thinking more from what people said at the last meeting, and then looking at some of the other cities and what they've been doing around their sustainability plan, it seems like it would be beneficial to us to think about some of the things that need to happen,
Mhm.
like the bigger picture things that need to happen before we can actually decide what would go into a work plan.
Okay.
So when I look at the next item on the agenda, which is like the strategic piece, something planning around it, a lot of the other communities that are the two cities I looked at, and there's so many you could look at, but the two that I thought were really relevant, very good things are happening in their communities, specifically around sustainability and climate. You start off by visioning and doing a kind of more of a plan, and that's like more of a community engagement piece. It's really about, figuring out what the priorities are in general.
Sure.
And then having a plan, like creating more of a sustainability plan, rather than already predetermining what things you think we should be doing and then going to those immediately to work on, I guess. So
Yeah, I
So-
mean, as a.
so, to me, the items in the work plan would actually be more related to how are we gonna get that done, rather than actually work plan items that go to the specific giant want column things. Because I don't feel like we know completely what the what is, and I think Stephanie was kind of going that direction too, is like, how do we know what the community wants yet, so, without asking them and engaging them.
Okay, but what I want, are we gonna, could we just, what about the template? What about organizing in this, putting a, whatever plan we end up with, would we want to do it something like this? And if we do agree that this is a good way to be organized and have, then it doesn't have to be, we could start it, we don't have to finish it now, we could.
Mhm.
So, does it make sense, from what you said, to have this kind of template to,
As a way to organize our thoughts?
yep.
Yes.
I think this.
I guess it's just the what you fill into it.
Right, but I think that's flexible, I think that we can
Okay.
tweak and add and subtract and leave blank and fill in when we get there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Julia. This is, when we do, in my experience with doing planning work, this was kind of the last thing we were doing in the plan. We come through, define our goals, objectives, and then come up with some specific actions and create a work plan from it, which is what this exactly is. It's a template for specific actions, but if you don't get your broader assessment of what you want to do or what the community wants to go and do ahead of time, how do we know that these are the things that we, as a sustainability commission, want to approach at the same time? And I think, I see, the second item on the agenda under D is discussion of possible action, including on scheduling a strategic planning session with identified stakeholders. I think we kind of need to do that. I agree that this is a great template. It defines what, who, where, actions, when, all that in there. But,
We don't have the goal and like the vision first, which is normally like the starting place. Cleveland did like a whole sustainability summit, for the community. Basically
Yeah.
brought people together.
in Appleton.
Brought the
Scott,
leaders in the community together, the community itself together.
Appleton
as a
put
starting
together
place
a master
for
plan
figuring that
for
out, and I-
sustainability, so
And I mean, Stephanie was kind of talking, I think it was Stephanie,
Mhm.
she was
Mhm.
sitting,
Mhm.
Yeah.
talking to that direction also, about how do we know what the whole community wants first, so.
Well,
So from the
like-
beginning, I feel like it's important from, sorry, the
Yeah.
beginning,
No, you finish.
to engage the community. I went and talked, yeah, so, and I don't know what part it comes into, because I just did what she suggested, go talk to people that I ran into. But it would be good to get that first.
Okay, that,
I do like the template, if that's what we're speaking to right now as far as a layout. As far as the top column, the headings, like, if we were gonna change it at all, one thing that I would suggest that we would add would be projected revenue source, or projected.
so we do have, yep.
Oh my gosh.
And, yeah, so I'll read your mind on that, because there's a revenue funding source on that. So, were you done?
I've been rendered. Yes, I'm done.
Or are you just on the same page?
Yeah, I took the item to be that we'd be using the template, not necessarily what's in the template, that was kind of exemplary. I mean, so, and I kind of like that form, I mean, I'm not a very organized guy, so when I saw that, I said, gee, that looks swell. So, I mean, if we're just talking about, making a motion to accept this template and start working it, I'm okay with doing that.
Mhm.
But, right, we got a lot to fill, it's a blank template, we got a lot to fill in.
Well, he filled it in.
I'll take-
Well, I know, but I took that as examples.
Well, those are examples.
I thought they were from last meeting.
So
They are.
those are the
Oh,
goals
they are,
we
really?
identified from last
How
meeting.
did I not even catch that?
So that's everything we've decided to take
Because I
on
said
as a
see Ned.
priority.
That's why I was like,
I didn't
I was like,
What do
there, I was
you
like.
see?
there.
Okay,
Can I see
so
what you're looking at?
can we,
Yeah, so
can we
like-
make
Ned
sure,
Noel?
so
No,
that's Ned
not
Dorff.
me. That's the Ned from Eau Claire.
Yeah,
That's-
so there's
I'm
two
the Ned from
Neds.
Green
So
Bay.
this is just examples from theirs.
So that was what a functional
actually
work plan
looking
would
at the
look
other
like.
one.
So then there should
Right,
be
I didn't think it was on.
there should be a
Oh,
tablet.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is on.
You
And
didn't
I
fill in
was
that
on
one.
that one.
Oh, you were on.
I didn't,
okay.
so that's
I
what
saw
we,
it.
that's what we could do.
Oh, you already did fill in, yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah,
I guess in general, I mean, when you start to look through sustainability plans too, though, I mean, there's pretty big, broad umbrella themes
Yeah.
in general. So I'm not against that. It's just more about, if it's truly going to be successful in general, I think engaging this community from the beginning and
Mhm.
figuring out what they want, to focus areas on, because there is only a limited amount of things we could all do, and more
Yeah.
minds is better than any one of us, so.
Absolutely. So in this work plan that we have the template for, not to be confused with the example one with Eau Claire, we do have, so this is all the things that we made a motion on, strategic planning and I guess community outreach being two things of those. We could fill out a little bit a plan to do that. So if we want to start there, I think that those two items specifically, we would be
Yeah.
yeah, we would be able to fill those out a little bit more. I also do think having those other goals we identified, renewable energy, stormwater management, infrastructure, zero waste and transportation in the comprehensive plan, there are some pieces we wouldn't necessarily need to fill out. But I think that if we have a little bit of an idea of where we want to go with those prior to a strategic planning session, we would have a little bit for feedback from the community. If we schedule a strategic planning session and we're like, well, what should we work on? It'll look a lot like the beginning of our meeting last week where we're like, well, what should we work on? So I think that having at least a tentative idea and some of this work plan started to be filled out to the best of our knowledge right now gives us a starting point to get feedback on. And then we don't need to necessarily limit ourselves to just those things. We can use it as a starting point to really fill out our mission after that.
I guess the only things, the items in here, the 100% renewable energy, that's very specific. So
Mhm.
you're already saying, and I know that's what the committee made a motion and stuff, but that's like something, rather than just clean energy
Mhm.
or, something like broader.
Mhm.
You're already determining, or this commission's already determining what the goal is,
Mhm.
basically. And I'm not sure if that's, think that's like too specific at this point, I guess.
So, and I know it might be taking it out of order, because part of what I was asked to talk or look into was Wisconsin Legacy Community Strategy.
Mhm.
And they're kind of doing what you're talking about, where they break down into sustainability areas under transportation, under land use, under energy, health, water resources, and waste, and then get into more specific, and then broad areas underneath there where some of what you're already talking about under this grid kind of fit under the subset here.
Mhm.
And there are definitely areas in there that are not where we're not addressing yet.
Mhm.
I think I still go back to that, having some sense of what the public would like to see addressed as a community. Right now, if I were to throw out my idea, well, zero waste is right on the top of my list. And so
Mhm.
I'd say, dive right into it and try to do something with that. But there are a lot of other people who have a lot of other ideas as well in this community, and we're a pretty small subset of them.
Mhm.
And I'd like to hear from others
I think
before we just
That, and we
willy-nilly start.
don't know, like, what does it mean to have to get, what does it take, or what does it mean to go to 0%?
To zero
And is
waste,
that
yeah.
actually like something what we all wanna,
Is it achievable, and at what cost?
yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
I would say the same for
Yeah.
the 100% renewable, it's like, you're putting, I think it's like taking a step back and not putting any numbers to it of what it should be yet, is basically. Like, these are areas of sustainability in general,
Mhm.
but we don't really know, especially for like the city or for our community, like what it means to be 100% renewable energy.
Mhm.
If we live in, I don't know, can we even buy that much?
Produce that much.
From WPS.
Well, yeah, and I guess it depends on what it means.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I understand Julia's point in that some of these goals are very specific. Sustainability chapter in the comp plan, it doesn't exist. I talked to Paul Newmeyer on Tuesday.
It
about
does or
that.
doesn't?
Does not.
Does not.
No, does not exist, but they'd like to have something in there, but I don't think the updated plan is real soon.
That's on the
on the
agenda.
agenda.
I'll talk about
Yep.
that.
Yeah, so, but that's very specific. I mean, that's like, you can do that, you can
Mhm.
foresee how to do that, whereas stormwater management as a goal is a category. Are we talking about, what are we talking about? Julia's an expert, our expert in stormwater management in general, and is that green roofs, is that catch basins, detention ponds, is it rain gardens, is it residential, is it commercial, is it industrial, is it, no mold on industrial lots, is it, grassing, is it porous pavements, those are all pieces of it that are more specific actions, but just saying stormwater management as a goal.
Sure.
It's a great goal, how do you argue with it?
Mhm.
Even 100% renewable energy is a goal under energy in general, but there's also energy, having renewable energy is one part of energy, because you've also got energy conservation
Someone
aspects of it. So-
brought that up to me, actually.
Yeah.
They were more concerned with energy conservation. They'd like to see less of it used.
Great.
So, I would hesitate, I would say, yes, we would create a work plan, or use the attached template. I'm not so sure about using these goals as they sit right now.
Okay.
I think they're more action, some are goals and some are actions,
Mhm.
and they're a little bit mixed. So, we either need to better define them now with amongst ourselves, or we need to have other input to get to that point. And part of it is we've met, it's only been a week. Even the little bit of information that I've pulled out in the last week has been stuff that if everybody takes a look at that, or goes through some of this stuff, we could fill this whole page with actions or broader goals and redefine it a little bit better, have better foundation without reinventing anything. I mean, there's so much good information out there on sustainable communities and what that means and what it would take to achieve that, and how do you move the city of Green Bay towards that. And at the same time, are we talking about city policies or residential, or city resident actions? At what level are we acting? Are you saying, okay, this is something where we should be advocating that the city puts in place a policy, puts in place demonstration projects, or is that some, and acts on it, within city facilities, or is it something that as a resident,
Well, that-
we're encouraging
and
residents
those
to do
things
things?
come from engaging more people than just ourselves to figure out what people is important to folks.
Okay, so there's a lot of discussion,
Including
what
us.
ought we do at this time then? I think a lot of the questions that are being posed are perhaps answered by beginning to fill this out, but where do we want to take this particular item? Randy?
I'd make a motion to use this template to organize our work,
Mhm.
and that we begin filling it out how we see fit.
There's a motion on the table.
Second,
Second, any discussion?
some discussion.
Yeah.
I would like to move to amend it.
Sure. There's a motion within this motion. We're going
You're
section
amending the
style.
table or the motion?
Based on what you guys are saying, I would like, well, I can't talk yet, but yeah.
Well, second.
I have a motion.
I'll second it. I'll second your amendment.
To
Well,
Well, you gotta
What's
make
the
it.
for
right,
discussion
second it.
amendment
I'm
first?
sorry, I was clarifying.
Oh.
When you say I want to make.
I would like to add a column
Okay.
Yeah, what's the?
He's amending the
to the
table.
left-hand
motion.
side
Okay.
Well,
I don't
but for
know.
me.
But it's a motion
for
of the
category.
If I may, for me, the template is, I mean.
I see what you're saying.
It's a what, but even our what is completely blank. We can put anything in there.
Yeah.
So we don't need to amend it to put another thing in because we can put anything we want. Nothing's in there now. We're gonna discuss what to put in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a
I'll
blank, it's
withdraw
a
the
blank,
motion.
it's a blank
With-
slate.
Withdrawn motion, original motion on the table to begin to fill out this work plan. First, or motion made by Randy, seconded by Ned. Any discussion on that motion to begin to look into this?
As I understand it, then you would be advocating for a blank template.
Yes,
This template, which I'm fine with the template as it sits,
Right.
It's, I guess at this point, the more the information that's in it right now.
right. There's no information in it. All those were just examples is what I took it to be. I didn't think it's up to us and the community to help us decide what we want to put in there and how we want to put it in there and when we want to put it in there and how we want to tweak it as we go working along month after month and so on. It's a working document. And right now, it's blank.
Yes.
All right, all those, any further discussion?
I don't know that I don't understand how it's blank. We have categories across the top.
Well, I mean, other than the categories.
So I would like to
New
add a new
headers?
category.
You want to add the
Well-
header?
Or I would like to, sorry, new header.
I'm just.
Oh, a new header.
So a new y-axis?
Column header,
New
right?
column.
Oh, okay.
Oh, a new column, so x-axis.
Okay, so we have the goal on the far left,
Yep.
right? But if we step back from that, the bigger idea, which you brought up, energy, clean energy, that's more of like a category. Okay, so I would like to add a category column on the far left, and then the goals can come after that column. That's my suggestion right now.
So, now I'm just realizing that, okay, you had a template from Eau Claire, but this is not it. There's different.
So this is unique to so the goals, the going down on the x-axis are every single thing that we made a motion to pursue
Sure.
during the last meeting.
And I kind of like the Eau Claire one better because it says what, and then so they're they're things.
Mhm.
The goal is not something I don't think we've really, I think that's the goal, the word goal means that's, I don't know.
Change goal to what?
I mean, it's a work plan, so that's why it's a what.
Yeah.
This is changed to goal.
Oh, I didn't.
Just because that's what was identified as a language for the last time.
Mhm. That's everything that was voted, and it was all unique.
That was-
Right, and
Oh,
we
because that
stated it
was-
as,
that
we
was-
stated it as
I
goals,
see.
but
That's different than.
on our working
what.
document, we can still
Yeah.
call it a what.
That's what I would,
Or
that's what I
action,
would
or
suggest.
Objective, or there are all sorts of words we can throw in there.
So is
Okay.
this
I
super?
think there was a
crucial?
motion
I had
on
a
the floor.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wanted to add, can you say that one more time?
Category.
Category
Down the
to
left side.
down the goal side or the top?
Add a column to the left of the goal category. Or the
Oh,
goal
okay.
column, sorry.
Oh, sure.
For category.
Category, okay. Is there a second?
I thought I did, no, second.
Second, all right, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Hold
Opposed?
on a second. Hold on.
I'm opposed. I'm sorry, I just don't know if it's necessary to add a category, because are you thinking because then you could match up like the broader categories of sustainability stuff? What does the category column mean?
But I guess I was trying to answer some of the concerns that you had about, we have, like on the far left side, like 100% renewable energy is a specific goal, right? It's not like a broad enough area to be kind of the start of that line, or whatever we want to say. So if we backed up and said, well, what area does this live in? It lives in the area of clean energy, right? And then we could have clean energy as a category that we focus on, and then a goal, one of the goals could be 100% renewable, one of the goals could be, you know, LED lighting or whatever, high efficiency
Sure.
heating and cooling.
So then like community outreach, what would you do with that?
I believe, as far as that piece of it, we should do some committee kind of work and create some kind of a draft to be like, here's what we've worked on. Present it at a planning session and
As a goal, like flesh it out more, what that means?
I think what you're saying is that, so we go ahead with trying to fill this out, or let's say we even take these goals as laid out here, categorize them. So 100% renewable energy is under energy, stormwater management is under water, green infrastructure is under water, community outreach is
Yes.
kind of all encompassing, it's an action
Cross-cutting?
across everything else. And then sustainable transportation is under transportation, sustainability chapter, and strategic planning within. So you've got strategic planning within the community and community outreach are kind of the same, two parts of the same function, and they're not really, I don't see them as a goal, a sustainability goal. I see them as an action the committee wants to take on.
That's
To
actually-
get the public involved.
So that's what maybe that's what I'm trying to ask, is what are we defining as goal? Because it's mixed. There's, like he said, there's like actual 100% goals, and then there's actions or things.
So that motion did pass. So it's on there by 4 to 1.
Well,
4 to 1.
So this discussion is just about the past motion. I think that.
we could reconsider it.
Pardon? Yeah, but so just so we could have a motion to rescind if anybody wants to change their vote. But just for the record, that did pass.
But what are we saying the
But-
goal means? So,
So the goals
because
are.
maybe some of those don't belong in the goal column.
Sure.
Right.
I would
Right.
agree
I
with
think-
If you
that.
add category column, maybe
So
they.
Julia,
I would agree
so-
with that. Some of them would belong in.
Yeah,
the-
so, and that's, that's what we kind of talked about, is that what we passed was, so Celestine, for example, if you were to blank, to erase everything that's in that, under the word goal.
Yeah.
I mean,
Erase it
just
all.
as an example.
Sure.
If you just got rid of everything in that column that says 100% renewable, whatever,
I know, right?
what we approved was the template,
Mhm.
without any of that in there. That was
Okay.
your,
Okay.
as I understand it, that was
Okay.
Dee's
Yes.
motion.
Yes,
Yes.
but
So-
they were talking about something about from the last meeting.
But from the last meeting, we
Yeah.
actually
We
had.
started putting some stuff
So-
in.
No, you're saying
But-
though we defined at the last meeting what goal was through these categories, and that
Tho-
was the
Those
decision.
are the motions that we made to
Yeah.
pursue. So this work plan was put together to start to figure out a plan to pursue the goals that we identified as priorities.
And so
which was-
potentially some of them aren't goals under the definition of a goal.
Mhm.
So how do you,
We can move.
So we could change the word goal, but I think that if we begin to fill this out, we'll have a little bit more clarity, and that I don't necessarily know if calling it a goal or a priority is going to really make or break this as a.
but what do we, okay, that's fine, I'm fine leaving it goal.
We can leave
I'm
it
just
blank.
wondering, so if there's something that doesn't belong in the goal category, is it okay to move it out of there?
Yeah,
I think
we
if
can.
we-
I don't know, we
We're
made
the
the
ones who
motion.
put it there.
It's a working document, we
It's
can
a
move
working
things around and put
document, yeah.
anything.
So this isn't gonna be like this isn't the comprehensive plan of the city. This is just a document to help us organize our goals or priorities or initiatives better. So I think that we can definitely have this be very fluid if we want it to be. Goals,
Did we
priorities.
vote on the amendment?
The amendment passed.
So there should be categories now at the far
Yeah.
left.
So,
Okay,
I mean,
so-
just as, if we, further discussion on that, if we may, just, basically, we could take what we've got in there and, as our discussion, now decide where they go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you've got a category.
Yep.
So you could move green infrastructure to a category. And, yeah, there are a couple there that just don't fit as, they're priorities, they're actions that we want to take, or, you know, the community involvement is just, is part of the overall process.
Mhm.
Not necessarily
A goal.
a goal we're aiming for. It's that, okay, so we're gonna go out and talk about, we're having some kind of public involvement and talk about the fact that we, yes, we'd like to achieve 100% renewable energy and how we can go about doing it. And that's part of the public discussion.
Sure.
Through the strategic planning process and through the, what is it, community outreach process. Yeah, so that, those are processes rather than goals and actions under, as a
Fine.
specific item.
Yep.
Part of the process, and so that's, you know, I think that's what you're trying to get at too, right, Seth, in terms of, we need to establish a work plan to get us moving.
Yeah, yeah, because right now we're just talking about the work plan. So, I would recommend that we start, let's take it goal/priority by goal/priority and try and fill it out to the best of our ability. And then we can figure out, maybe we decide it's renewable energy is a terrible idea and we shouldn't pursue it at all and we should strike it. But these will help answer some questions and give us a little bit more clarity over how or if or when to move on it. Does that make sense to folks?
Yep.
Okay, so I believe we're still in the main motion to use this as a work plan.
Add a category, which I did.
Yep, so that passed.
Yep.
So then we're back to the main motion.
Everybody wants to see the
The main motion, which was made by you to use this as a work plan to begin to map things out, and was seconded by Ned. So.
As a template.
As a template.
Yep.
As a template, only as a template, yep.
Yep, so this is just for us and for our willing audience here. So all those in favor of diving into this template, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, now we're
We
cooking
can
with
always
heat.
keep it.
Okay, so,
Hold on a second.
how are the Brewers doing?
Too early,
I
is it?
checked, it was still two,
They're
I
up
think.
to
Brewers.
Oh, no, they were up, started at 4, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
2-0, middle of the fifth, so.
Great.
come on.
2-0 Rockies, huh?
No, 2-0 Brewers.
Oh,
Is it in
Oh,
Milwaukee or is
in
it?
Milwaukee.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
It's loud.
Can you hear it from here?
Yeah.
All right, are we good?
that'd be
to-
0-2.
Not yet.
Oh, two,
Sorry,
yes.
I'm
No,
too
you're
slow.
good.
Two
We need to
Brewers.
get the game updates anyway.
I'm glad.
That works out good.
Should there be a game every meeting so I can get caught up? Okay.
All right.
November, and games will be over.
So, I mean, I think we should just start at the top and work our way in. I think there's some of this is pretty cut and dry. But
Oh,
should we-
I'm so sorry, we're not going to be on the second one? We're still discussing?
Oh, should we? Oh, okay. So what would
No,
that?
I mean,
No,
what
we-
did you want to do? I assume that
Do we
you
wanna
wanted to go
start-
to the next item.
Yeah,
Oh.
which
Number
which
two.
would be working on, the
The
next time it is
strategic
working
plan.
on it, right? Isn't that what they're
Working
working
on
on?
this plan, or should we? Oh, that would be
No.
action 2?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm mistaken, so sorry.
Oh, okay.
Let me go back.
I mean, do we want to start hashing it out at the table here, or do we want to, delegate folks to take on different columns, or?
I think basically we could do the first basic stuff right here, right now, right?
I think
mean,
that would be best.
Yeah, my broader concern is that, having looked at a lot of other stuff like Julia has as well, that I'm not sure that what we identified in that very first meeting was everything that we want to talk about.
Right.
And again, I go back to the legacy communities, to this sustainability plan, the Appleton sustainability plan. I mean, there's tons of templates and stuff in those. There are a lot of categories we didn't even think to talk about.
Oh, yeah, you're in, why, yeah, yours is at the end.
Because I'm always late getting information. She knows.
And it's presentation, so that goes at the end for this template of an agenda.
Okay.
Is that how it works? Because it's all, I think it's relevant, that information is
It
very
is.
relevant to what we're talking about here.
Okay.
That's what I would think.
So we
I
want
thought that
to
was like
maybe
some of
amend the
background.
agenda
I thought we were
to,
going to discuss other,
do we want to amend the agenda to move up his presentation? to
Is that a
include
motion?
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
I'm move to amend the agenda.
There's a motion to amend the agenda to move E2 to now.
Presentation sounds so just like- Sorry, no PowerPoint, you get to
Ah.
listen to me and look at the info.
and then just that curiosity, remember, last time we were gonna talk about what we had, I don't know, any research we've done around, is that in number D2? Is that planned in D2?
I think that can be,
Or is that part of Mark's, since it's informational?
I think that
Well,
would be fine.
Well, yeah.
If there's a motion on the floor, it should be seconded.
Second.
Well,
all right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
just before we
Discussion.
vote, is it, I mean, you're going to give a presentation,
Well, I'm gonna-
but that information, never mind, I answered my own question. Okay, yep, I'm good. Let's vote on this.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right.
Sorry.
It's okay,
You're
okay,
good, you're
okay.
good.
So I think it's good for us to slow down a bit
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So clearly, all of us are concerned about the baseball game. We want to get out of here so they can.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen.
I, you know,
There's,
And now
I have
we'd
a
like to
game cast
discuss.
on.
All right, Mark,
Okay.
you can kick it away with your formal prepared presentation.
My formal presentation?
Yes.
Yes, and given a week and having gone through, meetings all day. I didn't see, other than you at Renard Island, So anyway, I was challenged with looking into the Wisconsin Legacy Communities program that basically is, it's a green tier program that's started through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources with impetus from Pals and Friends of Wisconsin and several other groups that are interested in the health of the state in general. And it's also aimed at, it's initially aimed at businesses, so it's part of it is to help businesses identify how sustainable they are. And then they brought in communities and said, well, communities can also be sustainable. And there is a template and strategy that has been put together that's been active since 2010 for communities in the state that identifies a broad set of categories for sustainability. And that's what I was looking at, because they actually have, in this case, it's a scorecard, which for me always, I like having scorecards. I like having the ability to actually analyze myself or my community or whatever my work is against something else, some other standard here.
Mhm.
And that's what I was thinking, where I was coming from when I was looking at what we've talked about in that template, is that this is a set of goals, objectives, actions that have been developed that are in use by something around 20 communities in our state. Appleton's the closest one, but Sheboygan's part of it, Beloit's part of it. There's a bunch of communities in our state that are doing this, and each year they put together an annual assessment of how they're doing. I think that there's a lot in here that is valuable for our discussions in terms of even more specific actions. So, for example, the transportation is your column category on one side, and with it there are two broad categories: transportation demand management and transportation system management. So And then they define what that actually is, and strategies to look at how do you meet the demand for mass transit, for alternative transportation within a community, and specific actions underneath there. And then it's even further broken down into bicycle and ped, employer-based programs, traffic volume under that demand management, and other transportation system management. How do you reduce greenhouse gas emissions is part of that. So I think it's a really valid, very great, good way of us starting through this, and actually it's almost a pick list in some ways, because it gives us the broad categories that we're gonna want to address. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know that we talked about transportation, we talked about water, we talked about waste, we talked about energy. We didn't talk so much about land use other than the comp plan, but there are other aspects of land use and zoning. And we certainly didn't talk about health, which is a big part of the community in general, both, mental health, physical health in the community, all those categories that are part of that. But I think this could give us a really good template to actually fill out that work plan, not necessarily taking everything that's in here and saying, okay, we're going to establish a goal to address land use or to address transportation issues or to address energy issues, but it gives us the ability to categorize them and evaluate it. They actually provide a scale in terms of how you evaluate, are you good 1 to 3 or are you bad 6 to 10 or something like that.
Is it aimed at things like the municipalities can do
This
too?
is-
So that's,
Yes, and so these are
rather
actions
than like
that.
a nonprofit would do or something.
Yeah, they're actions that communities can take on themselves, either through ordinance development or demonstration projects or community involvement projects. And, so I'll skip to, pick a category, water. So under water, you have water use conservation, stormwater management, water and development. And under stormwater management, develop a regular street sweeping program to reduce total suspended solids. Okay, Green Bay's already done that. I mean, we regularly sweep our streets, so inventory all paved surfaces and develop a plan for reduction. Work with commercial light industries, develop stormwater pollution plans. So those are basically specific municipal actions, because in this case, you're evaluating the municipality itself. But it certainly can go farther than that then in terms of advocating for industry, for business, for residents to take on some of their own actions that are in these categories as well. And I just think that, like I say, I don't want to sell ourselves short on a plan at this point without having a good foundation for all the opportunities that might be out there that we want to look at. We also don't want to take on everything all at one time. So there's some prioritization that comes along. And we each have our areas of expertise, obviously, that we're bringing to the table here. So I'm going to be the strongest advocate for the strategies I know at this point, because I don't know enough about all the rest of them. So do we argue on, when we get down to those prioritizations, how are we going to define what's a priority? Are your priorities my priorities? Are they Ned's priorities? Are they Randy's priorities? Are they Julie's priorities? We're here because we bring different levels of expertise to the table. So when we get into that work plan, how are we going to prioritize it? Is it low-hanging fruit? Is it something that we've all seen that needs to be addressed right away, or is it something that needs to be somehow evaluated and weighted in some manner? And I don't have a good handle on that yet. It takes me a while to evaluate things. It took me 9 months to buy a house. It took me 2 years to buy a new car. It takes a long time to evaluate things.
In 2 years, that car isn't new anymore.
Yeah, well, it was new when I bought it. It was just a matter of finding the right deal and getting there. But nonetheless, I mean, maybe that's just how I function as well. I don't take on actions without doing a lot of analysis, and sometimes that's a detriment, but sometimes it's positive too. It can, believe me, it can be not a great thing sometimes. So the legacy communities are then a program of the state that they've actually deferred to 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin through the Legacy Communities program. And they are actually willing to come and talk to any community that wants to move into this program. And there are certain, there's legislation, the Green Tier program has certain benefits to communities in terms of how you rank. I didn't get into too much in terms of the overall benefits. I was looking more in terms of how you evaluate how well you're doing. But it gives you a scorecard, I guess, as a way of evaluating yourself as a community. And you can also look at other ideas from other communities, and you don't have to take on all of them. Yeah, it's part of it. But I think that that's, I believe, is where City of Eau Claire's came from, or kind of tied into it. I know that it's, yes. Okay. So you probably know as much about this as I do in general, so.
So what would our next steps on this be? So it would provide us a baseline and show us what we're doing and what we're not doing, maybe give us some low-hanging fruit. What would the...
Well, I think what it does,
What's the
for me, what it would
timeline?
do is it would allow us to take a look at let's say this lists of,
From the city level, though, that's what.
correct, from the city level. So
That's-
this is more aimed at municipalities, programs that we would
Well,
advocate
they
for
can
the city.
impact things that this municipality can do
Correct.
directly.
Or,
I like that.
but we could, basically taking a look at this and saying, okay, what are the priorities, what are we looking at? Take one from each category and say, what's the highest priority out of each category, or what's the highest category we want to look at, and identifying something that's in there, taking the language that they're using in terms of defining goals, the broader goals within a category, and saying, do those mesh with what our thinking is? I'm all for not reinventing the wheel, and part of the problem with just starting out with a set of goals that we all threw out there is that, again, we may be going through a process that some of that work has been done for us through other communities, and rather than reinventing it, or rather than not learning from them, let's take that information and use it to create our work plan from it. Part of planning, as what they did for a long time, was taking other information from a lot of other sources and copying the great stuff and using it. And I think there's a lot of great stuff in here that we can use. So when we get into that template, I'm thinking that my thought is that there are things on here that absolutely are, oh, hey, look at this, right into a template. It's got a definition of who, what, and where within that definition. And I think that's why it's important that we start looking at that.
Sure. So you have me convinced, but what would it take and what would the timeline be to become a green tier community, and what does that look like? What would we need to do?
Well, we'd have to
Can
do.
we just have a motion?
Well, this is
This
not
is not motion to
not
vote.
action.
Yeah. It's not a-
It would
It's
be,
institutional.
Yeah.
part of it is baseline assessment. Where are we?
We'll take this the next time, put it on the
And
agenda.
that in itself is an action we could put into our work plan.
And do we determine that? Do they help us determine that?
They
The
help
Green
us
Tier
determine
community?
that.
Staff?
We can, I think as the Sustainability Commission, we actually probably have the expertise to take a look at that
Yeah.
and what we don't know. I know that Julia, for example, knows an incredible amount about stormwater management. And I've worked with her for a long enough time to know that.
Green Bay.
I spent 20 years doing land use planning, so I know a lot about the land use planning side of things. I know very little about energy or health. I would be willing to learn. I know something peripherally about transportation, but we have transportation essays here. So, we have people who are fulfilling some of those areas. But I think doing a baseline assessment from that list is a great way of establishing where we sit and what our priorities could be. Because, we go through that and identify, okay, we score ourselves a 0 on categories X, Y, and Z, or 8 of these items, well, then there's either it's because they're not relevant to this community, or because there's a lack of action on that item.
Mhm.
So that's what I think is part of that work plan, that is actually using these, but also using these to help us develop additional goals and objectives.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like to get the municipalities' ducks in a row on these things before you can, I don't know.
Do we want to invite the, I forgot his name, I meant to go through my emails to try and find
yeah,
it again.
I think I have it somewhere.
And-
He's from Green Bay too, right?
Is he?
The guy that reached out to us is,
Oh.
or has some affiliation. Sorry, go ahead.
Do we want to invite him to our next meeting, or a meeting within the next meeting or two, to come and talk to us about
That would be great.
would
I think
so.
that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Not connected to the internet. So are we able, we're not able to make any motions?
Well, you wouldn't make, it's just,
We can just do it?
as the chair,
As the chair,
you
I can do
can
that.
reach out and find out when he can come, and then you can put it on the agenda.
Awesome. I would do that. Do we have, is everybody jazzed on that idea
Well,
informally?
Informally.
informally.
Yeah. Cool. I would
How do we
definitely.
put
do
items
that.
on the agenda? I mean, in my world of agendas, you know, Dean comes around our office and says, you got anything for the agenda? And we put it on the agenda.
I think moving forward, I'll send you the, so if we are meeting on the first Thursday of the month, then I would need to have all agenda items to you by the Wednesday of the last week prior?
Correct.
Okay, so then I would need probably reasonably by that Tuesday, so I can put it into the agenda, so, yeah.
Yeah, and some of these are really general,
Yeah.
too. So it's a good starting point, but there's a lot of really general stuff that would, you know.
And let me just say that just in terms of, you know, the process that Mark described, that essentially a staff member goes in their office and says, hey, or do you have agenda items? That is certainly possible. Like I said, it would be good just to make sure we don't have walking quorum. If you have agenda items, you give them to Seth. And we also have our first communication from Alder Galvin, which won't be until the next meeting.
Yeah.
Because it didn't come in time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So alders can make communications to various commissions, boards, and committees. And so Alder Galvin made a communication, which I could pull up if you wanted to, although it's not on the agenda, but that's how it comes.
Yeah.
Agenda items come in.
Cool. Awesome. I think that's a really good framework. Is there any further discussion, or do you have anything additional to this piece? I think that's all.
No,
super
I think
helpful.
that, but I think it's a great idea to, it would be a great idea to contact the Green Tier Legacy Communities folks, because they're absolutely, I'm willing to talk to groups of that, certainly.
And then what, other than using, I mean, they provide a framework, what constitutes being a green tier community? Is that action by common council? Is that executive action?
You're asking me late in the day when I'm reading this.
Oh, no.
So, I would have to go back in here.
Okay.
Maybe we can get that from the presentation.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Just,
I
I
know
mean,
that
to
they
put it on the
do-
agenda for an action item, you know.
That there is a contract that's part of being a green tier community. I printed that out. I'm still a paper person. But I know where it all gets recycled and recycling markets. Paper is
Job
easy.
security.
Yeah, it's never going to be a problem. Paper processes. Yeah, there is basically a contract that you enter into of sorts, an agreement that says you're going to meet these, your plan of action.
Charter,
A
right?
charter, thank you, that was the term I was looking for. And then there's evaluation of that, and if you're not in compliance with it, you lose your charter essentially over.
We go down a tier.
The charter is entered into the
TOP.
DNR and 1,000 Friends, Legal with Wisconsin Municipalities, Wisconsin Energy Corp., Municipal Environmental Group Wastewater Division, Center on Wisconsin Cows Strategy. I don't know, there's a long list.
Cool.
Yeah. You're not actually you're not a tier 1 or tier 2 community, you're a charter, green tier charter community, legacy charter community.
Now you're gonna bring a tear to my eye.
Yeah. Cool. That's really interesting. So.
Yeah, and like I say, you know, in terms of our discussion on the template,
Mhm.
I love the idea of a template. I mean, I do as a work plan, because we need a work plan. My larger concern was having just only had a week between the first initial meeting and today, that we are not overlooking something that we might end up saying, oh, we put together, and I know on the work plan is, we can modify the work plan as we see fit, as we go along, but again, you don't want to avoid something obvious that we should have captured in that initial.
Mhm.
His initial work plan is going to define what we are. I believe it's, we should find what we are as a commission.
Okay, great. Well, that's a great.
And I think we should be using as much energy as we possibly can, because I want to run all my devices.
Job security. Great, well, thank you for that, Mark. I guess that'll put us back to regular business. So we did pass the motion to just use a template as a work plan. I guess given that, we don't necessarily need to start filling it in, but we have a work plan established as our MO moving forward. We could move on to regular business then.
Is
Item
this still,
2.
this item still under discussion, or?
Oh, is there
your
which
item?
item?
Item D1.
D1,
no.
yes, that's.
That's informational.
No.
Now
D1
we're
's
on
No,
to-
D1 is.
Oh, D, I thought you said D,
Yep.
sorry.
D1,
D1 done?
unless you want to, you can add more motions, we can go back to it.
Yeah.
If you want to.
We're a little ambiguous about that. I'm fine moving on to item 2 of D. Sure.
Does
Okay.
anyone else want to reopen D1 to look at the template at all?
Well, I looked at that as kind of a two-part item in there. We agreed that the template is there.
Mhm.
and We like the template.
Mhm. So what I have is this, I have that, to discuss the creation of work plan, to use the template to create a work plan, add a category, and then I have, motion to amend the agenda, to be provided E2.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I have. There's lots of conversation, but those are the motions that I have.
So I think that once we hear from the Green Tier Legacy Program, we're going to have a better idea of our possible goals. And then at that point, we could potentially become a member or what have you, or use that as an inventory. And then we'll have a clearer idea of what our priorities and goals should be, and we can match that with the work plan and revisit it at that point, would be my suggestion.
I just don't think this is gonna be the answer to everything that you want.
No.
So I don't know
There's more.
about tying
There
it
are-
solidly to what we're gonna do in the future. Like I said, there's not, I guess this isn't the scoring, I don't know how you get scored. Those
Those are the actual scoring categories and how they're scored, are listed on and I don't know if it's self-scored or if it's scored through, I didn't take that
Because,
deep into it yet.
you know, like, okay, my point is, like, so for transportation category, even if we did all these things, I'm not 100% sure that we'd actually meet the goals potentially for the sustainable transportation that potentially the city wants.
Again, I
to
thought,
do.
my understanding is that, again, that's sort of like, we would take whatever we wanted
Yeah,
and put in our,
yeah. I heard when he said that, though, we're tying basically whatever this is directly to our work plan.
Will we use that to inform the creation of a work plan rather than doing our work plan right now? That seemed to be what was
Okay.
suggested, if I understand correctly, or maybe I inferred. That it makes more sense to start with the inventory and baseline, so we're not pursuing goals without leaving other ones out, and this will help us determine the full realm of possibilities. Or
I
do
don't
you-
think, that's what I'm saying, is I don't think this is gonna help you determine the full realm of possibilities.
Okay.
I think this is a starting point and has some really good information, but I don't think it's gonna get you to potentially where you wanna go,
Okay, well then.
based on this city's needs
Okay.
or vision or goals.
So is that a
I mean,
segue?
I don't think this is gonna get you to 100% renewable energy, for example.
Okay, so with that,
But, you know.
do you think we should revisit the work plan, or should we look at strategic planning, which would be the next item on the agenda?
Looking at you, Jen.
Yeah.
Why,
Well-
I was just going off of what you, I just didn't want to tie this directly to like what we were gonna be doing. Or like, I
Well-
didn't want to make it like, I said, I think this is informative and
Right.
potentially we
Right.
can become a green tier legacy program. I just don't think that's it, like, that's
The
only
green-
informational.
Yeah, the
right.
here.
I figured what we'd have, what we've done, or what we've talked already,
Mhm.
whatever we like from that,
Yeah.
whatever we get from the community,
Yeah.
and that's what we
I mean, I guess what I would think we would do over the course of the next month, my suggestion would be to take a look at this information, whatever the research we as individuals may want to do, and actually take a look at filling out that work plan ourselves with the additional information that we would get from the Green Tier folks next time, so that we're not spending the next month just waiting for the legacy community. So taking other information and actually doing homework on some of that, and then doing homework with whatever our next discussion item would be. But I think that's what I would like to see in us. That's what I would like to do. Is go through that template as we defined it and say, okay, I think this is my idea of what we should be addressing based on the information that's in here that gets us some things, information that's in a number of other areas that we haven't talked about, and filling that out and coming prepared, having that as an agenda item in terms of, again, it's that second part of this, creating a work plan with the attached template and actually synthesizing our information.
Great. I think that sounds like it makes most sense.
Are we gonna have that information made available to us, to all? Is that-
Yeah,
Yes.
you sent it to me.
I sent it to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Today.
Well, that's fine.
Yesterday?
That's fine.
Yesterday,
That's fine.
Afternoon, whatever, yeah, it was.
I don't need it right now.
Great, I think that sounds good. So we move on to item 2 of regular business, discussion with possible action on scheduling strategic planning session with identified stakeholders.
So that takes a lot of planning and effort, to say that right up front, to
Planning's
do
in
it
the
well,
name,
to
yeah.
do it well and meaningfully. So I think, I don't know, I mean, there's only really half of us here. I don't know if it's a conversation of like, what do we all think is the best way to go about doing, is it one giant event? Is it, I don't know. There's many methods to collect information from the community, but.
Yeah, I would ask also who are our identified stakeholders.
Perhaps that is a good thing to start identifying the stakeholders, and it would need to be a public meeting.
Yeah.
And is it just one meeting?
With
That's what
however
I
many
mean, you know
meetings
what
you
I mean?
have.
That's
Yeah.
what, there's a
They-
lot of
Probably more
like,
than
what.
one. I was
They would need
thinking.
to all be public meetings, however
Yeah.
many you have, which means they need to be recorded and all this process that we're doing here.
Well, I didn't know if it
That's
could be
because,
recorded.
that's because our.
That kinda
commission-
limits where we
Is
can
that
have them.
because,
No.
yeah, that's what actually, so that's actually, how can we do true community engagement outside of this room for this, to inform this
Right,
commission?
so
So
there-
who can do that and how can we do that?
There are some other, I'll double check with the city attorney, but this would be an activity of the commission, which needs to be an open meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So, we use Civic Clerk in order to record our meetings and motions and votes. There are other ways to do that. But then the activities taking place at that meeting won't have the ability to be closed captioned, which means that we couldn't videotape them. So, but I'll double check with the city attorney. Just know that it has to, wherever it happens, here would be easiest for doing that. If it were to take place in community, it would need to be an open meeting. Means noticed, means recorded.
Oh.
Means,
Okay.
right. But like I said,
Recorded. Okay,
yeah, it needs to be recorded somehow.
that's the part I didn't realize.
Because that's how we,
Video recorded?
that's how we did minutes before, Randy, if you recall, Alder Scannell. That
Right,
we
but,
had-
well, I wasn't so much thinking that this was, when we do the outreach, I wasn't so much thinking, because we won't be making motions or anything, we're just presenting information, getting information.
Let me just double check with the city attorney. I'm fairly certain it has to be an open meeting.
What about, can we as a commission work with outside group to help coordinate something? So it's not an official.
I will certainly ask.
Activity by the commission? So that's what it sounds very complicated for,
Yeah, I would ask planning department, because they have to be holding
Yeah,
meetings on comprehensive
they've
plans.
done things,
On neighborhood.
Yeah, a little different,
Yes,
but
okay.
I'll double check with the city attorney.
the threshold if we have like quorum there or not for going to community
Yes.
events? Like if we had like 2 people?
Well, then that just becomes
Yeah.
then it isn't a public meeting if you're just socializing,
Mhm.
and then you can't have quorum.
Mhm.
And if we do, then we have to notice it.
Yeah.
But I will
I'm sorry.
double check with the city
Okay,
attorney.
yeah, because I remember planning going to the tap room and giving a presentation and then also having to.
Is that
their
the
room
planning
was-
commission, or is that the planning department?
Oh.
Department.
That is a difference.
It is.
This is the sustainability
So
commission.
how do commission, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's
yeah,
still learning, so.
Yeah.
But then if we were to identify stakeholders and we wanted to get feedback on an individual basis, we could have 2 people go meet with like WPS, for example,
Mhm.
and then report back that meeting here.
Mhm.
So that's a potential option to solicit feedback from stakeholders. So we could identify stakeholders right now and revisit the specific way to hold one large strategic planning session. But yeah, so those are options.
Okay, yeah, actually just understanding what we can and can't do
Yeah.
is really helpful, because like, say we wanted to have like a full day meeting
Mhm.
or shred or something,
Yeah.
like how is that even possible for us to do? Or do we need to do it more individually based? Is that what I'm hearing in
Kind of,
general?
yeah.
Together, so we need to,
Probably.
so that,
So like I said, I'll double check with the city attorney
Okay,
about
yes.
doing,
Yeah.
for the sustainability commission to do a kind of charrette, which is what a department does, which they're not subject to open meetings laws, but commissions are.
Mhm.
So I'll just double check with her about how that would have to go, and what kind of recording there'd need to be.
what about, what other, like, are there other things also that we are not, that we would need to be aware of, that I have no idea about when it comes to gathering information from people?
We're completely empowered to go meet, like.
Individually.
Yeah, like for example, last night I was at the Brown County Conservation Alliance meeting and they said, we have this great new commission. If you have any ideas, I sit on it, so provide
Could you like
feedback.
organize outside this, a meeting with them and do your own, like,
Mhm.
focus
As an
group or
individual?
something like that?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna have my own strategic plan.
Can our, as a commission, can we
Yes,
like plan
okay.
that together as a commission?
Plan individual members of the
Yeah,
commission
I don't
who
know,
have
like
these
something
focus
like,
groups.
well, say we had like a set of questions or a
Mhm.
format for a
Yeah.
focus group, just as an
You certainly
example.
could do that. Quorum is an
Yeah.
issue.
Okay, so that's what, four, I'm sorry, how many?
5.
5, okay.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Yeah, so we could divide into like, you know,
So.
Divide and
groups-
conquer.
Yeah, groups of 2 or 3 and then go meet with like industry, energy, or business, or what have you. So that's totally legal. So
Okay.
perhaps we want to think about, I think that if we think about questions, just so we're all having uniform questions, and then identify stakeholders, and then we can use the buddy system. Camp counselor and coming out again.
I mean, I definitely think we can start doing stakeholder groups kind of maybe based on our stuff, I don't know. And then, I guess, questions if we had time, but otherwise, I mean, like I said, I think the other half of this commission would have some pretty good ideas
Yeah,
too, that we'd be missing out.
yeah.
And questions don't just, I mean, they need to be kind of developed properly too.
Mhm. Yeah. So. perhaps-
Brainstorming questions is fine, but actually
Mhm.
thinking more about them from a social science perspective would be important.
Mhm. So perhaps bringing that back to next meeting, specific questions we want to ask stakeholders, and then bringing back a list of stakeholders to hash out, and then I can totally follow up with folks that aren't here and get them to do that too, make sure they saw the minutes and everything. Is that legit? Giving them their
Is that a
own
rule
assignment?
anymore? It's not a rule.
Yeah, walking, yeah.
Also, like, we're
Well,
embarking,
not if
we're
he's
saying
giving
that this is,
information
and then I
from the
guess.
chair.
He's asking for information.
I don't
But he's
know.
not
You're
asking-
gonna
Or no,
have to
no,
help
no,
me-
do this for next time.
You're gonna have to
though.
help me.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
that's right,
that's
you can
fine.
do that,
Right,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
And you
Right.
just have to help me, since I've never been on a commission too, how these things kind of go in general. I mean, there's a quorum here, and we're making decisions though for the rest of the group
Yeah.
too,
Mhm.
for the process we're embarking on. So I'm not
Mhm.
like super comfortable with that either, without them being like, yeah, this is a good way to move forward in gathering information.
Mhm.
No, that will happen a lot.
Yes.
Okay, So can I just get over that?
Get over that.
So I can
Yeah,
show up.
yeah,
like, you
get over that, 'cause
You
yeah,
shut up.
yeah, and if
Democracy
someone,
101.
if someone has an issue with anything we've done and they're not here,
Yeah.
they can contact the chair and it can be put on the
Okay,
agenda. and
So
we can
just keep moving forward
Yep.
based on who
Yeah, we can't,
comes.
we can't,
Okay.
we'll never.
Slow down if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
wait for, okay,
Mhm.
all right.
And someone can always add something. I mean,
Mhm.
the benefit of, just to interject, because this is a commission that is really doing a lot of work amongst the commissioners, because there's expertise on the commission, that means you can bring your work product to the commission to have the commission approve it. As I thought I heard people say, you know, sort of incorporate some of the Green Tier Legacy goals, priorities, focus places into a framework to work on, and continually work on it. As long as everything is written down, presented, discussed, that is something that is perfectly okay to do.
So from my experience doing these kind of things, like, we could sit here and list lots of stakeholders. That's pretty easy in general, I would say. I think the questions part, from a social science perspective, like the thing, before we start saying questions, you really need to understand why we're asking questions. Because that will determine your questions. So like, what is the purpose of us going into the community to ask questions? So if you can define that, I could even come back with questions around that too. Does that make sense? So if you're gonna do a survey, focus group, whatever, you need to have you have to set, what is your objectives? Like, what is the why are you asking people questions? It's very important to define that before you start writing survey questions.
Yes, but that's if we're doing a scientific survey.
No. This is important because then you know you want to ask the right questions and you don't want to waste people's time with your questions. And we want to have a good question. So I think it is very important for us to decide like what the goals of what are the goals, what information do we want to get from people when we go out? And that will help really determine the questions.
And that might change from group to group then.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So I
Well, there
believe,
is.
Maybe.
are we asking questions so that we can inform our own work plan, basically? Like, that's the ultimate
Yeah,
goal.
so what are some of those things though? Like what do you want to know about the work plan? I mean, be more specific.
I think
than that.
when we address somebody, and people want specific goals, they have specific dreams or goals in mind. And I think I would like to know what those are. You know, what do you want to see? What do you want to see Green Bay looking like in 10 years? What do you want us to do regarding these big categories, regarding energy, regarding transportation, regarding public land, regarding whatever it might be? But kind of, what's the pulse of the community on what do people really want to see? And I think that would inform our work plan to a large degree.
And that's the same question of stakeholders, WPS, and who else would we want to ask? Who's another stakeholder?
I mean, I think the huge buckets, and I agree 110% with that. We want to ask the goals that we have identified and see what we're forgetting. But, you know, we have the big buckets of energy and industry. So maybe that's WPS, that's Eland Electric, maybe that's Georgia Pacific or any other big industry. Then we have businesses in the area. We have that green business proposal that folks were talking about too. But what are things that businesses want to do or think they can do or don't want to do to get their buy-in? There's a number of environmental conservation groups, Brown County Conservation Alliance, traditional environmental partners, social justice groups, community organizations, neighborhood groups. There's all sorts of groups like that I think of right away.
Yeah, do we,
Agencies, other governmental education entities, UW.
I mean, it's great to ask, what do you see Green Bay being in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now? Is that too broad a question?
I don't think so
You
at
don't
all.
think so?
I think that's better,
think it's
actually.
better to
Yeah,
be
because then you
general.
see where people's what they want. And then you can, I mean, that's exactly what, it's open-ended, that's like the most perfect question you can ask, is I think, I don't know, I just think, you know. it's-
Shows you.
What do you?
Yeah, well, do we want some more
Totally, I
specific?
could go with a
Especially if you're
different
going
question.
for like priorities about what people care about in their lives and what's important to them. I mean, you'll get more specific things out of them unless, so if you go with a more specific question, you're directing their answer a direction already. So if you
Yeah,
ask
I was
them
just
that,
thinking
they
more
might
in
be
terms of
like,
the-
I want, you know, my kids to be able to go to the nature-based 4K. Like that tells you something about,
Okay.
like a priority of
Yeah, I
how-
was just thinking more in terms of, you know, even just a broad category of sustainability, you know,
Mhm.
rather than open-ended future community.
Sure, sure.
and I mean, I've been asking people
Environment.
like, I mean, about like what sustainability means to them. And I'm just getting, I mean, you're getting the same kind of answers about energy, blah, 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 blah. This tells you what the community cares about. Like, I mean, and then you can frame your sustainability actions around those things that they care about.
Right.
I don't know.
No, I can see that.
I thought that was pretty good. but-
Yeah, I definitely think starting broad would be good and not framing it to influence people, but then we also have identified priorities and getting the right feedback on those would be helpful, because maybe we figure
Right.
out that we don't, nobody cares about renewable energy, which I hope isn't the case, but we should, you know, scrap it, or people don't want to do zero waste. So not framing the conversation so we can get honest feedback, but then being like, what about these specific things? And
Yeah.
that can help lead us, so
I think,
that
like
sounds
a
great.
follow-up question, which I thought was pretty, because it took me a couple times to like word it the right way to people too, because they're like, what are you talking about? Because they just started like rambling about sustainability in general, and I'm like, no.
Mhm.
Like, what would,
Okay.
first some people started just talking about what they do, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you want the community to do better?
Mhm.
And then like, that's the pretty odd, open-ended, and let them, you know, just say what they did, and it was, I don't know. So I do, yeah, following up with like more like, okay, well, we have the Sustainability Commission.
Mhm.
Do you ever think about environmentally do you do any environmentally friendly or sustainable practices? That kind of gets, and then, you know, what would you want the community to do, work on?
I want people to stop breaking their leaves into the street.
I want the leaves to stop falling.
A person I talked to once, the impacts of Lambeau Field and all solo cups.
Solo cups. I would not
Trash.
do that.
Actually, he just wanted it to be a cleaner city.
Hmm.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And if we're, I mean, if they know that we're on the Sustainability Commission while we're asking it, then that probably puts them in the mind for, this is why you're asking me that question, right? Like,
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
you know.
Trying to, you tell them up front, you know, we're gathering information about what the community values.
We need T-shirts.
The Eau Claire one has their own logo.
Oh, this is out there.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so I think that sounds good. I guess bringing it back a little bit to the agenda item, do we want to task ourselves with coming up with a list of potential questions to bring back and approve at the next meeting?
Do I hear a motion?
And could I amend that and say, and a list of potential stakeholders?
And a list of stakeholders.
Well,
All right.
there isn't a motion.
There's not a I was being rhetorical, so you could make the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. So motion by
Mark.
Mark and seconded by,
I'll second.
okay.
All right, so the motion to create a list of questions and stakeholders to bring back to next meeting.
1 second.
Does that work with your thought process in terms of
Mhm.
social science?
Yeah,
agenda?
definitely. I think, I was just saying it was important to start from a place of like, you know, making sure we have a clear idea of why we're going out to ask people.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's kind of how I was thinking of it, just in a different track. You know,
Mhm.
We're asking people because we're looking at a sustainable community and
There's,
not,
when,
yeah, you know, some answers that can be way out left field or not even relevant to what we're trying to get at. Yeah, I don't know what that might be, but it's just
Sure.
experience has taught me that there are some people who will never give me an answer that's usable. So.
do you,
They'll give you a sustainable
do we have to
answer.
say, vote
Yeah.
or?
Somebody told me that we should
So there's a
work on
motion, a second, you can still
potential
discuss.
super volcano under the Great Lakes.
So the chair calls for
What
vote.
the potential was.
Just related, I guess related to this piece,
Yeah.
nothing to amend or anything, but aside from getting current information from the community and the stakeholders. There's a lot of information already out there too, that, there's other resources that probably need to be gathered about what, like the comprehensive plan, what's in there, if that's relevant. Just in, and like some of this, I know there was recently some work done with Green Bay regional people about their values and stuff regarding water quality and stuff too, so.
And there's probably other things we haven't even thought about. I mean, I heard Steve when you were talking about the MS4 permit that City of Green Bay is under for stormwater management that Renard Island may affect, and I never even thought about that in terms of how that affects other things, but there may be aspects of that we don't think about in terms of our other goals and objectives.
I have some polling from a partner group on Brown County residents' reaction towards municipal governments taking on local renewable energy initiatives. That probably would be really relevant. I need to see if I can share it, but I think I can.
There's also the Brown County Quality of Life Study.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gotten
Yeah.
brought up a bunch. Yeah, I was thinking about that. We should definitely pull that in. When was that? That was just done again?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just finished that last
Yeah.
week.
Okay. So we do have a motion on the table and a second. Is there
Any further
the
discussion?
discussion beyond the motion we can come back to, but the motion, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Nobody. Motion passes. So, yeah, I guess going back to that point then about other information out there, is there anything we want to particularly?
Maybe it's better if we wait to see what the categories are first,
Yeah.
and figure out what, although, I think there's two things. There's like information related to what the community values,
Mhm.
and then there's information that we'll have to get background information about whatever the priorities and goals end up being.
Mhm.
I think there's
And I don't think we're there yet.
a lot
I
of
don't wanna look into
information out
that yet,
there
quite yet.
broadly, but I just think about the quality of life study, that really gets kind of at that building a sustainable community in itself, because it does address a lot of the categories we've talked about in terms of making sure that there's there's an availability of resources to the community as a whole, and where those gaps, that they did a great job of identifying gaps in the
Mhm.
community. And, polling of, surveying of information at a variety of levels, both Casino and GP worked on that cooperatively. So.
Sure. I guess with all of the potential information out there that we could use, I would say that Tuesday, the week before our future meetings, if there's anything informational that we want, send that and we'll try and include that on the agenda so we can all make sure that that gets distributed to everybody.
Could we have like time for discussion about it?
Like going
not
forward?
informational, like an informational something about
Mhm.
talk, because there's a difference, I guess, I don't know, between sending stuff out as attachments to the
Mhm.
agenda, and then
And-
also just, I mean, don't we need to sit down and say
That
what
would
we've
be at the
learned?
meeting.
Yeah,
We do that at the meeting.
So do you
Yeah.
put that on you'll put that on the agenda, that's what I'm.
Yeah, so-
Rather than just having send in your stuff that you've found.
So you would send it and then I would include it on the agenda, is what I
Okay.
So then
So
I
then
would
we would
have
discuss it at the
what
meeting.
you got, and
Okay,
so we all have the same info coming into the meeting, and we
Okay.
discuss it.
all right.
What is
Yeah.
what is that date? It's the end of October, so.
So for this month, that's a really good question, which.
And speaking of dates, I'm hoping we maybe change the meeting date.
So
I know we
Well,
can't.
what do you wanna change it
Not
to?
formal, not this, we'll
You
talk.
mean from the 1st to the 8th?
To answer
Or
your-
the 1st, you want to change the 1st? Oh, you mean just in general?
Yeah, a regular
Tuesday's
Ah.
November 1st, so
So-
that's.
Out of order.
Could be the.
Yeah, I am.
All right, so
Want that
we
back?
had an official question before we move
Oh.
on to the next point. So the deadline for agenda item requests or informational items to be sent to be included on the agenda for our next meeting as it stands would be Tuesday, October 23rd. So then I would have a day to process everything, like, there we go. There we
Can
go.
we, can we be clear about what we're sending?
So any, Any
Or what we
information.
know.
With stakeholders and questions?
Like background information related to like what could inform the work plan.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've talked about all.
General enough.
We've talked about all the different studies out there and things like that, so if you think that there's something that everybody in the commission should look at, that would be the deadline to send to me, so I can make sure to include that on the agenda, so we can all discuss it the following week.
Got it,
Yep.
okay.
And then any other agenda items as well would be that day, so that will give, so if end of the day, the 23rd, and then I will get the agenda to Celestine by the 24th, and then we'll all have a great meeting on the 1st.
Bring your Halloween candy.
I'll be in GOTV mode. So I apologize in advance.
Yeah, so will I.
Yep.
31st is county board budget meeting.
Scary. Get it?
So it's.
All right, so, did you want to discuss?
Well, when we're all done.
We're all done,
after
okay.
just yeah.
So we're wrapping up on regular business number 2, going back to informational, item 1.
Okay.
Update on City of Green Bay's comprehensive plan, possibly, of including a sustainability chapter.
Right. So I did have a conversation, I know you had a conversation, Mark, with Paul Newmeyer, one of our planners, and I had a conversation with Kevin Bonk, the director. I did send you a link to the comprehensive plan on our website. I also included in the, so just for your future edification, we have these agenda item reports. So if there's this is a great place to put, that we can put information, like a
Did you
recommendation.
look at your PDF, by the way?
Say it again?
Did you look at the PDF, by the way? It's cut off on.
Yeah, I'll
I thought it
get
was
that
my,
fixed.
at first it was my screen. but-
Yeah, well, and then the spacing gets to be funny, so it doesn't, I don't know why it does that. Anyway, so I did put the link in the information, the background, and this essentially is from our website. And then I also decided to put, did get cut off. Essentially, I just made a picture of what pieces are, what chapters are in the comprehensive plan on the website, but that's where it is. And so in my conversation with Director Vunk, we are probably going to be looking at redoing the plan next year or in 2020. And so this is a great time, as you already identified, to include a sustainability chapter.
Cool.
The sustainability chapter, could that be like a sustainability plan that's part, like, I don't know.
A sustainability chapter in the comprehensive plan, which essentially would be
A
the plan that the city uses to identify
So it
growth.
could be quite large, potentially?
Could be.
If
Yeah,
you look at-
it depends on
Unless
how
we-
it's addressed. And I mean, you can,
You could have
comprehensive plan
sustainable-
could be, this could be a subset that's referenced in the comprehensive plan, and just the goals are listed in the comprehensive plan itself, or they're included as a part of each chapter within the smart
Right.
growth plan.
So
which
that,
is
so
probably
if you
more
were to
likely.
do it the way that Mark describes, then obviously you would have to do the work after the plan is created, or somehow in concert with the plan. If you were to, like, in the same way that diversity goals should be all along in everything you do, not just this diversity goal sitting out here. So if you want to do the same thing with sustainability, make a sustainable mark in everything that goes
Yeah,
on,
yes.
then that means working slightly differently than making a plan and including it in maybe you could do both.
I like the first, from what I've heard, the first option is much more effective. Because otherwise it just gets,
Having it integrated into each
Yeah.
area of the comprehensive.
or even not even having it just like as a separate appendix too, or something separate almost too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean-
it would be better integrated throughout.
If we, as we develop, even if we had developed a plan here, taking the plan that this commission comes up with and integrating it into into a comprehensive plan would not be difficult at all. To take those goals and objectives and integrate them into the chapters of the plan would be, if they're the planners, I know they are, they'd welcome that input,
Mhm.
because we didn't know the legwork was done, and that it was something that was valid for the community, so.
The things I wonder about that,
Did we need to open the floor or anything?
They didn't sign up.
Oh,
I
okay.
asked
Some of the things I wonder about, so
Last joke.
knowing that this is pretty good timing, because it looked like the last one was 2003 anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gosh. But in order to make that happen, like, understand, because maybe, I don't know, does the city set aside money to do the comprehensive plan? Or, so, and then, do we need to find extra funds so we can have, like, to help make sure the sustainability is integrated into it? Because, and it's not just the basic comprehensive planning process, right?
It is called a comprehensive plan for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I'm sure the city said this, I mean, they're not cheap. Last time they hired a consultant to do it, and it was a lot of money.
so how do we make sure, yes, that's what I
Yeah,
understand
it's-
that, that's,
but
but I'm
it's- I
saying,
mean,
so
it's-
how do we ensure that the sustainability piece is integrated throughout the how do we make sure they come together?
Couldn't that be an action
You
of
can
this?
send it to council.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, the action of this commission at the end of the day is to say, okay, I mean, one of our goals is already defined,
Yep.
you know, as making sure that it's part of the you know, we're identifying whether it was, okay, now that it's not,
Mhm.
making sure that it is.
Mhm.
And that's becomes whether, you know, how it's adopted at city council defines whether or not it becomes a policy that it integrates in the comprehensive plan directly or not, but I would imagine it would be
Yeah.
coming out of, you know, if you
It
have
would be.
plan commit.
How do we know?
Sustainability commission that's saying, yes, we should have integration of sustainability.
What if it's not passed at council?
Then all our work is for naught.
Then we try something different.
Yep, yep.
So then we just give up on the comprehensive, this.
I don't think so. I mean, then we go about it a different approach.
Yeah.
Then it's a chapter by itself, or then it's something.
Okay.
But I would imagine that given the support already to date for this, even creating the planning, the
Mhm.
sustainability commission,
Yeah.
I would find it hard to imagine that
The council
the
would.
council would
Yeah.
shy away from taking our recommendations, or it's, you know, at least, that's a pretty uncomplicated action to be taken. Again, I mean, I've done
Tens
40 or
of them.
50 comprehensive plans
Yeah.
over the course of my career.
I can't
All
imagine
didn't have
that
this information.
council having issues with that,
Yeah.
there'd be no reason to have an issue.
Yeah.
There'd be,
Unless they were against sustainability.
well, we just had a 12
We were.
12-0 vote to make this commission. I mean,
Okay.
there's
you know,
All right,
I mean,
I got it. I just.
and all you need is a majority. All you need is the majority of the
Yeah.
council. I mean, so if you have some change and you get a few
Sounds
rotten
good.
apples.
Okay,
then-
so is there, I think this would be a great thing to do, and then just to make sure it's on, I don't know, added to our work plan. Make
I
sure
think
that.
that's a good place to add it, that's why it's good to have that
So
released
you wanna make sure-
preliminarily as a work plan.
So we don't forget about it, and it's,
So,
right.
I'll just make a note for myself.
So as you
Integrated.
spend the next month identifying what you'd like to see in the work plan, just make sure that you include it, and I'll include it, and Seth will include it. And we'll go around the table and say, okay, item on the work plan.
And just help me understand really quick, I'm not really in the planning world. Comprehensive plan is mostly land use stuff, or could it
Everything,
potentially,
yeah.
it could be
So this-
everything, right?
everything,
So
yep.
this actually could be like one of the biggest places we could have an impact in terms of using all the
Mhm.
information
Oh,
we
yeah.
gather
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
like funneling it towards an actionable,
Yeah.
implementable
In
thing. Okay.
19.
I like that.
1999.
Obviously, I think that tells
It's
you
good
what our work
timing.
plan is almost.
It's
It
very-
is good time.
In 99 or 2000, the state changed the planning legislation to define a comprehensive plan as having the weight of local ordinance or statute within a community. Prior to that, it was advisory only. But once smart growth planning law passed, you actually have, your plan has to be, your zoning decisions, your land use decisions have to be made based on an adopted smart growth plan, which added immense weight to the planning process, because all of a sudden you're not planning in a vacuum, which is great. I mean, it made my world so much better in terms of being able to go to communities and do that. So whatever's included in there then becomes, to a certain extent, a de facto policy of the city. And under a lot, and you look at this list, you know, demographics, economic development, historic preservation, parks and rec, neighborhoods, natural resources, land use, you know. So there's, you know, it's broadly, yes, land use, but it's also natural resources, it's also social resources, it's demographics and economic development are all, and transportation are all part of every comprehensive plan. So having our goals integrated into it brings a lot of weight to that, to the sustainability efforts.
Mhm.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, since this is an informational item, there's no motions, but is there any other discussion on this as a goal or any other information? I guess in terms of timeline, when would we expect to begin doing work on this? Early, March next year at the earliest?
I mean, when is the city going to be looking at the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan?
Yeah, and then when would we weigh in after that?
Like 2 years
I-
out.
2 years,
Yeah,
so-
that's right. I think at this point, we are probably the end of 19.
But we
Okay.
can look at the comprehensive plan and you can figure out what information you need to
Mhm.
gather before
Exactly.
that process happens. I mean,
Mhm.
and then how already, I mean, that's a ton of work to do,
Mhm.
to think about how those sections in it you want to integrate the sustainability pieces.
Totally. Sounds like we hit it at a perfect time.
Yeah.
Glad it's not tomorrow.
That's
Pull in an all-nighter. Put the coffee in.
Come on, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
I guess I would just say that for stuff like that too, though, there are funding, grant opportunities to help those things happen. So it, to help get those, work, because it is a lot of work. So, there's opportunity, like planning to get us that, I don't know if commissions get grants. They do.
We should.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can apply as the
Yeah.
commission for a
Yeah,
grant.
to get some help with the plan. There's planning grants
Outside
out
of the
there
city.
Mhm.
for this kind of stuff,
Sure.
Yeah, so.
City of Eau Claire just got like $175,000 from the Public Service Commission to work on their energy action plan, and that's just energy related. And that's a lot.
Did that get announced today?
That will get announced like last week.
Yeah, some of it didn't.
No. The Eau Claire city funding pieces were announced last Tuesday, I think.
Still waiting on the Green Bay stuff.
Fingers crossed. Cool. Any other further discussion on the comprehensive plan? Awesome. Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Anybody know the score?
2-0.
2-0 still?
0-2.
0-2, thank you, yeah. 0-2.
Bottom of the seventh, 1 out.
On the 7th.
Bottom of the seventh, 1 out. So Brewers are batting. Yeah, and Perez.
I'm betting about the Brewers too.
A 2 on, first and third. One out. That's
I gotta
not
see,
better.
did Brown County get their money?
I was wondering if that was the same grant that you applied
It
for.
was Public Service Commission.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing about sports until I got here.